Hey, this is the Sneaky Dragon here, and I'm going over a game. Oh, I'm in this game. Awesome. With Sequoia versus the Sneaky Dragon on Rambling Rivers. Alright, now Sequoia, playing as Elodie, is player 1. The first turn advantage on this map is mitigated. If you look here, you see Elodie is to the right of this forest, and she really wants to cross all these forests to get to the other side, to get to this barracks, to get to this port. But she's positioned behind the forest, so that she can't cross it as quickly as, say, player 2. Player 2, as we're going to see later, is actually standing on the forest, which saves them 2 extra movement. So even though player 1 gets to move first, player 2 can move through the forests faster. However, to get around this, Elodie does something very clever. Instead of going through the forests, what she does is she captures this beach village here and then goes around by the beaches. So as you can see, I'm playing as Sedge, but I'll just refer to myself as the Sneaky Dragon, since it saves some confusion. The Sneaky Dragon walks through the forests, and is able to get all the way over here on their turn, so they're a little bit closer to all these valuable properties. Additionally, the Sneaky Dragon decided to build a mage here, so that the mage can capture the beach village in 2 turns. Alright, now we're taking a look at what Sequoia is doing. Because Sequoia went commander into that beach village, their commander is now stuck and still a long way away from these properties. But they built a balloon so that they can help their commander skip a turn of movement using the balloon. Now their swords are running down the map. They built an alchemist. They're trying to capture these properties as quickly as possible. But notice something interesting. If we go back just a little bit, Sequoia chose not to capture this barracks. That's highly unusual. Usually you want to capture this barracks as soon as humanly possible to keep your unit count up. But Sequoia instead decided to delay a turn so that this sword could move forward. Allowing that sword to move forward is also a good strategy because it can capture more properties later and start blocking me from escaping. They want to start blocking Sneaky's commander from getting out of there. You see that sword went really, really deep. Now Sedge has a choice. If Sedge attacks that sword, he can definitely one-shot it, but then Sedge fails to capture this barracks, and their unit count is going to be a little bit low. So Sedge decides to do it anyway, but the cost of that is it will now take 2 turns for Sedge to get this barracks, or Sedge has to wait for this alchemist to do it. And it looks like that's what Sedge is going for. They positioned the balloon to carry the alchemist to start capturing these properties, and Sedge is going to start being very aggressive. So some unusual responses by Sneaky to Sequoia's unusual opening. Sneaky's also building a lot more alchemists and swords. Very good for this map, trying to capture as many properties as possible. Now, Elodie just got this barracks, so Elodie actually beat Sedge to capturing the far barracks. That's going to give Elodie a big advantage in unit count. Additionally, Elodie already has a harpy out on the map, which was one of the reasons that Sneaky built that alchemist, because of all the air units that are incoming. Alright, now in order to respond, Sneaky is playing very aggressive with Sedge, going into the forest tile for extra defense and stealing this village from the opponent. The alchemist, as we predicted, was moved onto the battlefield, close enough that it could attack something here, but still far enough back to get that village that they missed. Sneaky then starts capturing properties with all their units, but is trying to stay away from this harpy, using this alchemist to zone it out. Now, if we see here, Elodie built a knight and a pike. The pike can stay home and defend. The knight can cross to the center of the map and start taking villages, and control of the center is very powerful and important. Elodie also builds another knight, so there are 2 knights. 2 knights are definitely enough to threaten a commander like Sedge, who has no escape and can't heal. Also, remember, Sedge still hasn't captured this barracks, so Sedge is still really behind on unit count on the right side. However, with the alchemist and sword pressure, Sedge was able to capture a lot of properties on the left, even though Elodie got that barracks quickly. Now, Elodie chose to take the village instead of going after the sword, because it would have survived since it was standing in the forest. On the right, Elodie is moving the knights into positions ready to attack Sedge or move to the center, depending on the situation. Notice the aggressive placement of this sword here. Since it's in the forest, Sedge cannot defeat it with 1 hit. Additionally, if Sedge attacks something like this village, Sedge can get completely surrounded with knights coming down on the left, a sword on the bottom. The alchemist could stand on this mountain and then crit Sedge. This is a trap. Sequoia is setting a trap for Sedge, right? So, seeing the trap, Sneaky decides to move a couple units here and then decides to attack the sword from the left. That's a lot safer because Sedge can only be attacked on two sides now, Alchemist crit on the right and Knight on top. Doing so will really weaken the Alchemist, and Sedge is still next to this village able to heal, so Sedge can't be trapped or killed because of how they chose to move. Alright, notice the use of the balloon to get that Alchemist onto this mountain. Sedge is trying to start threatening the center so that these knights can't take it over. And also because Sedge was able to capture a lot of properties here, and doesn't want Elodie to start messing with their properties. So the Harpy spam and the Alchemist to protect the Harpy means that Sedge's Harpies are able to threaten off the Knights, and if any Harpies come in to fight the Harpies, the Alchemist can take them out. So Sedge is sort of tunneling into the center here, trying to drive Elodie off. Now Sequoia was able to capture that Rax, but they still haven't built a lot of units here. They are able to transition this knight pretty safely into the center because it's out of reach of that Harpy. And Elodie is able to start taking properties here, but chose not to use that sword to capture this property because of the Alch threat. Taking it out, various units could threaten it. Elodie might be threatened if she tried to fight into it. So instead just chose to safely move onto that mountain there, and then balloon troops over here where Sneaky doesn't have as much presence. So you see what Sequoia is trying to do, just control a few properties instead of putting all their troops into danger. Meanwhile, on the right, you have this huge blob of troops with only Sedge fighting it. So Sedge is trapped, limited. There's not a lot Sedge can do in this situation. Now we have another sort of trap situation over here, because if Sedge takes out this village, the sword could stand here, all these units could come down, and then Sedge could get stuck. It's another trap. All these units piling over there are just waiting to take out Sedge. Meanwhile, on the left, Sedge is making a similar trap for Elodie, putting units into formation just out of reach or in a convenient range to threaten to kill anything that comes in. They want to worry about that knight, make sure their units are safe from that knight. They're not as worried about this Harpy hitting that Harpy because there are alchemists present here and here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So since this alchemist could stand on that Harpy space, if the Harpy hit this Harpy, the alchemist could take it out. And if the knight tried to interfere, this Harpy would survive, could hit that knight. So Sedge is being very careful to try to zone out Elodie from taking territory any more than they already have. Now Elodie is able to get this village back, even though Sedge stole it. And they still have control over here. However, because Sedge put that sword on top of the mountain, it's causing a lot of trouble and fussing and wasting a lot of units' turns. Sedge will lose unit count for that, but it might have been worth it because all these units got distracted and had to move way out of the center of the map. Alright, now Elodie is repositioning, trying to transition the knights towards the center because Sedge is pretty much stuck. Sedge just doesn't have enough units to compete now. The knight really isn't needed. Also, Sedge has Groove, and Elodie doesn't want to fight Sedge directly when Sedge has Groove. Now, Sedge chose to use the balloon to move more troops to the center instead of piling on here, and is still using Sedge to harass villages over here to try to keep income control. Lots of troops moving to the center, but still close enough to interfere with the right if necessary. Now, Sequoia has Groove. Elodie's Groove can steal a unit, but Sedge's units are positioned out of range. There's really nothing for Elodie to take, so she can't really go in right now, or she might be killed even if she does steal a unit. There's lots of dogs and pikes and harpies. There's lots of pressure here. Now, on the right, Elodie has chosen to go in a little bit. Take a look at these units that attacked Sedge, brought Sedge very low, but they weren't able to kill Sedge. As a result of that, Sedge can use this archer and infantry, even though they're very weak units, to start groove chaining. So Sedge was able to finish off that pike using groove despite being very low health. On the right, Sedge is just slowly advancing, trying to build a big blob of units. Notice the diagonal front here. It's called a diagonal front because both sides are sort of facing off at a diagonal. And the reason is they're just outside of the range of each other's powerful units. So if you attack into them, you'll lose in the counterattack. That's the idea. Sedge has a lot of dogs on the left. The dogs are great against alchemist swords and Elodie herself. In fact, if Elodie stands on any of these beaches, the swords could rip her apart. Now, Sedge chose to heal over here on the left, because Sedge was at very low health, and additionally, putting that village to Sedge's right gives Sedge some extra protection. Sedge can only be attacked on two sides, making Sedge impossible to kill. Additionally, Sedge chose not to go in and chain after this sword, because it would have put Sedge in a weird position. Additionally, that sword is already zoned out by these archers. If it stays here and keeps fighting, it's probably going to die. Sedge builds another archer, great for getting Sedge Groove, chipping units down low enough to get Sedge Chain Groove off them. But the problem is, look, Sedge really only has two swords here, and is that really enough to defend the archers? Additionally, all these troops Sedge sent center are still kind of in the center or have moved all the way to the left. Alright, now Elodie has sort of been stuck here too. She's at least gotten off the bridges, but she's trapped in this diagonal front. Now, Elodie is still using swords to harass, and look, they broke through Sedge's line, allowing the units to go very deep and take out a lot of Sedge's units. Now they're stacking here, making it very difficult for Sedge to fight into this, because even if they go forward with the archers, Sedge has no body blocks. On the left, Sedge is just moving forward, trying to take one more village, maybe. Just trying to harass a little bit, but still can't go in on this big blob of units. Alright, now we're back to the right side. Take a look at this. Sedge is using the archers to harass, but unfortunately had to kill that unit outright, because there was no way for Sedge to go all the way around and groove chain it. Very good positioning by Elodie. However, with that unit dead, Sedge can now go in and groove change that one sword. Additionally, with that other archer, the alchemist is able to be brought low enough that Sedge can now groove charge the alchemist. Now we want Sedge protected on multiple sides, so what Sedge does is Sedge goes over there and captures this village. Knowing full well the opponent can take it out again, that's a-okay, because Sedge can't be killed, can heal. Sedge has a downward heal option here. There are archers here and a knight here. Sedge has a lot of power here. It's very difficult to fight into this. Sedge, and this harpy is completely defended by the alchemists from Sedge's positioning on the bridge. The alchemists can't make it. Alright, let's look back on the left. Alright, so what's going on here? Lots of dogs advancing. The diagonal front is advancing, trying to meet Elodie. They can't go in on Elodie because of the knight pressure, all this unit pressure. But they're getting ready to be able to do so next turn, because they don't want Elodie to take out this village. That would really hurt Sedge. Alright, so Elodie responds. Elodie has two balloons and sends a knight center to take out a village. Additionally, all this balloon pressure is really scary, because if you can balloon two alchemists onto your opponent's Stronghold Island, let's take a look at the Stronghold Island for a second. Both players have one of these. If you can drop an alchemist here and here, then you can double alchemist crit the Stronghold over 2 turns and take it down. Maybe 3. You could roll various things. And it's really hard to get the alchemists off there, because think about it, what could you build here? A harpy? That would get destroyed by even a low health alchemist, especially because they crit everything here. So there's really not a lot you could do to remove them if your opponent successfully drops the alchemists here. Plus, they can heal each other if they get too low on health. It's really powerful. You basically win the game if you can drop 2 alchemists using a balloon on your opponent's stronghold. So Elodie has 2 balloons. This one's pretty far away, but that one has a bunch of alchemists in range of it, and it's getting a little bit close to Sedge's stronghold, so Sedge has to start watching that. Also, notice this diagonal front. It's positioned diagonal to Sedge. Sedge can't leave this area, or this front could collapse on him. Also, the front is threatening to move to the left to take the center of the map or fight out all these units. Now, Sedge chooses to go in on Elodie with a couple units. Maybe that dog was supposed to suicide. It's not really clear, but they were able to do lots of damage to Elodie, bringing her down to half with a few dogs, doing damage to this alchemist. Because they lost a sword and that dog is almost certainly dead and they're going to lose units in the counterattack, this wasn't exactly worth it. Elodie probably came out a few gold ahead on that exchange, but Sedge is getting ready for a full-scale attack. Also notice, this balloon was used to move this archer onto this island. So now if this alchemist goes onto this mountain square, the archer can hit it from here, and the archer sort of zones out this territory, or can be ballooned over here onto this front. So that's crazy that this archer is now sniping from its own private island. Additionally, Sedge chose to advance a little bit, putting the knight here, thinking that, okay, maybe it's out of range of everything. And great, I can start harassing this property, move out a little bit, bring my archer out a little bit. However, if you look closely, this knight is actually in range of the enemy knight's crit. Sedge might not have seen that. Alright, so Sedge is building a big unit blob and getting ready to attack. Lots of pressure on Elodie. Because she's at 5 health, she really has to retreat or use mage heals. She can't stay and fight or she's most certainly dead. There's the knight crit, bringing Sedge's knight super low. Additionally, on the left, Elodie takes out the dogs that were harassing, but has to retreat Elodie. There's no choice there. Also choosing to retreat the alchemist and heal it. Now that cost a lot of gold, but Sedge lost a lot of unit count here and about as much gold. The only real reason for this advance, from Sedge's perspective, was to keep this village safe and to be able to attack on the next turn, to get close enough to mount that attack. Now, Elodie on the right chooses to have this diagonal front collapse on Sedge, and look at this. The balloon was used to bring this sword here. The archer is now trapped because the sword can hit it in melee range. There's no escape. Also, the balloon serves the double purpose of now, on their next turn, the two alchemists could get into the balloon and get dropped on the Stronghold Island. That's a win condition. Sedge has to be super aware of that and what they do, or they could lose the game outright. Also, these two alchemists have this balloon which is getting close to the center island. There are so many backdoor winning opportunities for Sequoia's Elodie. Alright, now Sedge has to make a move here because they're being effectively threatened with losing the game over here by commander death, by backdoor, by these troops going over here and wiping this out, so Sedge has to make a move. Sedge chooses to attack with the archer despite the threat from that sword, and then uses Sedge to finish off the knight. Additionally, Sedge now has to take out some of these alchemists or other units to prevent that backdoor strategy from happening. So Sedge uses the alchemist to get this pike low enough for a Sedge Groove, and then uses this harpy to get the sword low enough for the Sedge Groove. Now with that harpy's position, it could still get taken out by an alchemist, but Sedge moves a square down. Well, eventually. Alright, let's wait for it. Alright, so going on to the left side here, Sedge uses a dog and an archer to take out this pike. Now, the pikes were really too slow to affect this front over here, but they could have threatened it in 1 or 2 turns, so Sedge, planning a multi-turn assault, decided to deal with the pikes there. By taking out that pike, this sword can harass that pike without getting crit. Now, the harpies go over here to take out this harpy, and now Sedge can go almost all in on this formation, having dogs and swords and everything move forward in an attempt to go full-out, all-out attack. Remember that archer that was sniping from its own private island? It's now here, so there are 3 archers here. Elodie does have Groove. Sedge is taking that into consideration by stacking alchemists in safe places, so that if Elodie steals a harpy, Sedge can kill it with an alchemist, even if an alchemist dies. That's why there's an alchemist here and here, kind of a little bit to the back in a little bit hard-to-reach places. At the very least, if that alchemist is going to die, Elodie has to invest there a little bit, or maybe herself go over there. It depends. Alright, so Sedge chose to block off this bridge and keep this harpy safe by actually using Sedge to attack this alchemist, and then putting the knight here and healing it. Now there's no way for the alchemists to get to this balloon, so they can't backdoor Sedge's stronghold. Now, this archer is super vulnerable and will probably die because of what Sedge did, but Sedge now has a somewhat healed knight, an alchemist, a harpy, a lot of power here to respond to it, even though the archer will most certainly die. Sedge builds a sword for lack of any other choice. Alright, so now it's Elodie's turn. This is Elodie's chance to throw off this counterattack. Using the pike to kill the dog and the other pike to kill the attacking sword, Elodie was able to fend off here a little bit. Now the units go in here and try to take out as much as possible. Elodie chooses to take control of this spear. that 1 health spear moves here with the help of the balloon to enable a spear crit on that archer, taking it out. Now Sedge just lost an archer. The alchemists are of course used to do heavy damage to Sedge's air force, namely the harpies. And the knight goes in on an archer, dealing huge damage, almost taking it out. However, all of Elodie's troops on the left are now in range of Sedge's troops, so Sedge can and must make a counterattack. Additionally, that archer dies, just like we talked about. Elodie harasses and kills that archer using a sword, very gold efficient, and heals this alchemist to keep unit pressure. Sedge is still way down on units on the right. So now Sedge really has to do something. He has to try to come back from this. So using the knight that was already there, he gets that alchemist pretty low for a groove chain. And then starts harassing these units with a sword first, because it's going to do big counterattack damage to the harpy. Then the harpy, now Sedge can move over here, groove chain this mage, and then walk back and groove chain this mage. This enabled Sedge to recover a little bit on this side, but remember, it doesn't matter if Sedge loses the big fight here with all the units. Alright, so with those alchemists dead, the threat of ballooning alchemists, from this balloon at least, is kaput. Sedge has defended the stronghold from a back door. Now Sedge is looking more on the right. Pike crit on the knight takes it out in 1 shot. Pike crit on the alchemist does not take it out. Notice this dog lived after that dog attacked it, so another dog can go around and dog crit Elodie's dog, taking it out. Now this 2 dog can go up here and take out that 1 alchemist. Sedge had all of that planned in advance. This was a very advanced level match. Alright, this alchemist comes down and does big damage to that pike, and then the knight actually finishes it off. So that way, the pikes can't set up a crit here very easily. Although they still can with these guys maybe, but it's much more difficult. And that was really all the knight could attack. Now, because of where that 2 dog is, this dog was able to go over here and get a dog crit on that alchemist. And since that alchemist is already really low, Sedge used the archer to attack the other alchemist and then brought it to 1 with his own. So now Elodie only really has a bunch of 1 health things, a sword, and herself. It's very dangerous for Elodie over here. Now, Elodie does have those pikes up top, but because Sedge killed one and weakened another, they are too far away to really get here in time if the fight continues. Sedge chose to finish off a sword here. Now, Sedge can get attacked from lots of different sides, but can't really be killed in this situation. And anything that does attack Sedge would almost certainly be able to be brought down by all the harpies and everything. So a surround really isn't possible. That's why Sedge chose to go for that sword. Alright, now, if we look on the left, because Sedge was able to defend here and win a big fight here, Elodie either has to counterattack or retreat. Now, Elodie chooses to go in because she's feeling a lot of pressure from all of these troops. She doesn't want Sedge to be able to press the advantage. The pikes go in, and Alchemist heals itself and some pikes to try to keep pressure here, and the sword just finishes off that dog. This Alchemist doesn't have a lot going for it, so it retreats all the way into this balloon where it will be safe, and these units all retreat up here so that Sedge can't pick any more of them off. And they have a good attack pack here with lots of dogs and a balloon that they can move across the map. However, even though Elodie meant to retreat there, notice she's still exposed on 4 sides. Exposing your commander on 4 sides is very risky, and Elodie was sort of forced into it by Sedge's very aggressive play. Now, Sedge has to figure out what to do, but since Elodie is exposed, a lethal is almost certain. Using the beach tile to actually make the dog weaker, Sedge attacks Elodie with the dog in such a way that the dog will most certainly kill itself. That way, Elodie has taken big damage, but that spot on top of Elodie is still exposed. Meaning, Sedge can attack Elodie from a bunch of different sides. Knight on the left, Alchemist from the bottom, another Alchemist on the right. Now, the space on top is still opened. This archer could maybe still hit her. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Oh, actually it can't. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Yeah, oh, yeah, through the village. If the balloon moves, the archer could move 1, 2, and then hit her. So yeah, Elodie's most certainly dead in this scenario. Now, while narrating this game, it might have seemed like a sweeping victory for Sedge. That wasn't the case at all. If you'll notice, almost every turn, Sequoia was actually ahead on unit count, ahead on income, threatening to kill Sedge at all times. This was a very, very powerful game played by both sides. Both commanders were denied the opportunity to use their groove a lot. Elodie only got to groove once, when she should have really grooved 2 or 3 times, and Sedge only got a few small chains, because both players used massive armies to restrict the very melee grooves of these commanders. That was an excellent game.